Alright, attempt number 2 of recording the walkthrough, because the first time I tried recording the walkthrough, the audio desynced, and so the whole thing is just wrong. But, just wanted to let you guys know before we get started, there's 2 things I want to talk about. It's how player stats work, and how the deck spell system works. Right? Those are the 2 things I want to talk about because they're related to scriptable objects, which if you don't know, there's tons of tutorials about how to use scriptable objects in Unity. But to kind of summarize it and give it my own understanding, they're meant to be persistent, right? They're another way for Unity to centralize data without having to write out to file, right? In fact, let me show you. So right here we have a spell, right? This is a scriptable object. What it does is it holds the file specific data. So if we want to create stats for a file, or attack or something, or anything really, if we want to hold stats persistently, we usually put them in a scriptable object. So here we have the spell time, which is the amount of time the spell is active. We have the image, which is obviously part of, it's just like a sprite that we put on the card itself. We have the cost of how much drive the card costs. The cast type, we have a nil value, so we have a null value, like a value that we want to mean nothing. We have the self, it can hit, like the spell attacks or takes effect on you, on the single target, it could be a projectile or it's an AoE. The effect prefab, which, if you guys don't know what a prefab is, I don't know what to tell you, you know what I'm saying? A prefab here, specifically for these spell cards, prefabs are important because even though we have all of this kind of placeholder data, each of the specific effects of the card, maybe if it's a projectile, it could be a large projectile or a small projectile that does something else, right? If we go look at simple AoE, it has mono behavior, it has its own mono behavior, but each of these stats are changed based on the can be changed based on the scriptable object, right? And each of those scriptable object settings are not permanent, but they won't interact with each other until the actual prefab is instantiated, usually, or they're changed as they're being called. I may be butchering some of this language, even though I can't show you my degree. Even though I have it, I think one of the things I was always really bad at in computer science was the lingo, right? I was really good at doing it, but not particularly good at saying it. And sometimes that could be just as bad. But anyway, what was it? Oh, the other thing I want to show you, so I want to show you how the deck itself works. But I guess really showing you how spells work kind of takes the place of that, right? Each of these spells, they have to have a hit layer and an ignore layer. So essentially, hey, we want it to hit enemies or breakable objects, but we want to make sure it doesn't hit, we want to make sure it ignores water, we want to make sure it ignores interactable objects, stuff like that. That's very important, especially if you have projectiles, right? If you have a projectile but you don't have it ignore the actual player, then the projectile could hit the player. It's kind of important that you do that. Sometimes it's not necessary. I think the way I've scripted projectiles is a little bit necessary, but we're not gonna get into that today. We can get into more scripting stuff later. That's cool. That could be an episode all on its own. And the way we did stats is also using a scriptable object, and there's a reason for that too. It's also in a scriptable object. We got current health, max health, all that good stuff. Especially when it comes to max health. Oh yeah, okay. So what we can do, things like player level, and player level is actually a different class, but it's serializable, so we can actually view it in the scriptable object. And then the base, if I remember correctly, the base isn't even a scriptable object. If I remember correctly, that's a struct, isn't it? Yeah. And then base, of course, is a struct that just simply holds data. It's absolutely not meant to be changed. But here it is, changeable. You usually don't want to do it with struct, but here we are, using a mutable struct. But people are going to frown on that. But yeah, so say you want player to be level 1 beginning, set it to 1, and then it sets these stats to these base stats. Of course, you want to change it until you have no experience. But as you can tell, the reason it got to level 4 is because we played the game before. And so we played the game. It got to level 4 on its own. And it kept those stats even though the project was closed. And that's why I put them in scriptable objects. There are other ways to do it, and I'm definitely not saying my way is the best way. But that's why I chose to do it the way I did, right? Because I kind of don't want to have separate save slots. That's kind of a me thing. I want to maybe just have one specific save, and if the player wants to reset the game, they can reset the game if they want to. Or maybe we have 2 save slots. We have 2 different versions of player stats, and we can load each slot. We load each player stat or each slot with its own version of player stat. And then maybe if you want to maybe if they want to load or save to file, they're really just loading to save to each specific scriptable object. That's an option. That's not how I did it, but that is an option. And when it comes to saving and loading persistent data, there are tons of options. Your creativity. That's why I love game development so much. Your creativity is really the thing that drives the ship. Because there are a million different ways. There are never one set way of answering a question like these. There are sometimes more optimal ways, right? There are probably tons of more optimal ways. But really, it's how you decide to do it. What's best for your project. But yeah. Anywho, let's go ahead and start the walkthrough. Now that I've given my preamble. Which is probably longer than the walkthrough itself is going to be. I did fix lost movement. I'm not going to show that I fixed lost movement because I'm going to use a controller, but I did fix it. Take my word on that. I'm sorry because this walkthrough is already going to be really long, or I guess not long, but it's going to be over. It's probably be at least 5 to 10 minutes. Right. So we're moving around. We got a player. We can interact with these pillars. Each of these pillars is going to give us a specific growth, like a specific stat growth. So actually, let me go ahead and show you guys. Excuse me, or is it available here? I don't think it's available here. But I'm not gonna show it here. And make sure to mute audio because the audio that I'm actually using as a test audio is 100% not mine, and I do not want to get copyright striked. So maximize. Oh man, is it maximizing? I don't turn it off by accident, but is it gonna do it? And this is definitely one thing I have against Unity, and I think a lot of other creators have against Unity, is that dang it's slow. Like, I'm not saying my computer is, like, the worst or best in the world, but dang, it does not have to be this slow all the time. Oh, I paused it. Point still stands. The point still stands. But yeah, no. As you can tell, like I said, I went through the walkthrough earlier today, and it didn't work, so I still have the spells from last time. And you could say that as a drawback from using a scriptable object as, persistent data is that now, even though I've started the game over from a fresh start, I still have spells, which I shouldn't have. So yeah, we went through this. We can run through him again. We reset our level, but we didn't reset our spells, so we're gonna cast a couple on him. Bang, 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 bang. Reset that. Redraw. Bang, bang, bang. So one of the things. What I mentioned earlier, the first run through. At the moment, I've disabled menus that show player level and stats and skills and whatnot, and even HP, because I don't want my friends who are going to be playing this to actually see that. I know that sounds weird, but I kind of don't want them to focus on that stuff right now, right? Like, balance is not what I want them to focus on. Like, I don't want them to know how much damage they're doing or how much HP they have at the end of the game. That's not the point. I want them to see, hey, because even the characters' animations, I love Mixamo, but dang, I don't like their combat animations at all. They always come across as real wonky. Especially when you map into a character that wasn't a Mixamo character. Look real odd. But yeah. I'm going to make sure I credit everybody for all the things I've taken from them. But yeah, right now we're doing a ton of damage because we have leveled up a couple times. I think first level is like, it takes like one enemy to kill for first level, and then after that, it's like God, I know I use a log. I think I use. Did I use a logarithmic expression for level? I think I used one. Either logarithmic or I don't remember. I don't remember. It's been a minute since I actually programmed it. But yeah, so we leveled up a couple times. You know, we got a lot of drive back, got a lot of HP back. I know that was also a really wonky transition animation, but the fact is that it actually did the transition, which is all that I really cared about. This is where we would get our spells to begin with, right? Like I didn't want them to actually use the spells at first. I wanted them to like see what combat was like, and then now they have understanding what spells are supposed to be. We have a small little cutscene. Obviously, I don't want the player to move during the cutscene, so we're static right here. And then when the camera resets, we should get our movement back. There it is. We're gonna block that again. I don't know why the mixed mode animation does that. Maybe it's not the mixed mode animation. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But I always found that weird that it blocked that way. That was odd. Okay, and then I know camera movement's also probably a bit wonky, and the animation does not show the entire scope of where I want damage to be. I think for most action games, where you're doing damage, like if you play something like Vindictus or Genshin Impact, you'll notice you're not going to be doing like your damage animation or the actual damage you're going to do is a lot longer and further away than sometimes you think it is, right? So it may not be directly in front of the character. It may be like even a meter. I guess that's not a good. Maybe not a meter. It's a couple feet ahead of the player, and then on top of that, it's usually like to the side a little bit. Even where the animation doesn't seem to go. For here, I'm using like a sphere. I'm making sure that it's clouding in a sphere, and of course they know to. I make sure that they go in a specific area in conjunction with the player. They're supposed to go like a little bit behind, maybe like and then the pathfinding algorithm will be like, oh, okay, well we can't go right there and the character's not moving, so I'm just gonna go a little bit that way or a little bit that way. That's one of the things I love about nav mesh. I prefer usually A star actually, but nav mesh has been really useful for this specific project because it allows me to easily update the actual well, not easily. I guess it is easy. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's easier, but it's free. It comes with Unity, so it's got a lot of built-in features that go along with Unity. And the ease of use for me has been pretty good for nav mesh. I think I did a practice project with A star, and that's where I fell in love with A star, and I was like, oh, this is really good. I really wish, and the free version of A star is already very powerful, but it just didn't work for this specific project. So we went ahead and went with nav mesh. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and go through the boss level. Boss is not meant to be beatable at all. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. I'm probably not gonna beat it or really try to beat it. I'm just gonna like cast some spells on it until it stops moving. Because it's not gonna do. I don't think it'll even delete itself. But I know I need to change. Come on, I know I need to change the animation that it go to when we actually do this because it's gonna start firing on me immediately. Thankfully, the projectiles are so slow moving that it's like okay. I'm going to purposely run them to make sure they do damage. Come on, don't do that to me. Okay. He's going to charge me a little bit. He's not going to charge all the way because his charge time, because he has a timer for his charge. And then bang, 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 bang. Going to lace him. We're going to fire at him from here. And now we're out of drive. Oh, he's going to knock me back. Oh, he's doing damage. Oh, God, the camera. Okay. And now he's firing at me again. Oh, God. Okay. Firing at me again. I'm too close, so he can't hit me. And I believe I got him at half health. Now, normally, this is where a phase 2 would happen. Thankfully, or unthankfully, I don't know yet. I have not scripted the phase 2 because I didn't want him to be beatable. So he has no phase 2, so he's just gonna sit there. And that's the end of the actual tech demo, I guess. As you can tell, there's a lot of stuff on the ground. That is on purpose, because I wanted to see how it would be able to perform if stuff just didn't disappear. How many particles would how would the particles affect the game in like how much space am I taking up? How efficient is my code to the point where is it slowing everything down? Because I don't want to be so inefficient that firing particles, even these small ones, would slow the actual game down. We don't want to do that. Because if it was, honestly, I hope it doesn't slow this recording down. That's what happened. I think that's what happened the first time. Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's the walkthrough. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't think so, but I'll go through the recording and maybe see. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. But yeah, that's the walkthrough. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And back to the rest of the video.